This is Alexis with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to talk about our new moon, which is coming this Saturday morning, the 13th of March. And it's preceded by one of the biggest holidays in the Hindu calendar in India. And it's the celebration of Lord Shiva. It's called Maha Shivaratri. It's the great Maha night Ratri of Shiva, Lord Shiva. And Shiva is it is really the state of consciousness, right? It's the container in which our Shakti or our energy is held. And the, mythology or the depiction of Shiva is that of this great meditating yogi. He has his hair in dreadlocks. He wears it often up, piled on his head. He's kind of mostly naked with just a, snake around his neck and a tiger skin skirt. And he has the moon on his forehead. His hair is also said to be like an emanation of the Ganges. And he sits atop Mount Kailash and meditates. And when he feels like he wants to pull into the world, he moves to his partner, his other half, his beloved Shakti, or in her form as his wife is referred to as Parvati. And he comes down for those epochs of play and interchange in the world. From a moon perspective, from like the full moon, the new moon perspective, we have the full moon where the sun and the moon are across from each other. And if you think of the sun as Shiva and the moon as Parvati or Shakti, we have this, the light reflecting on it, filling up the part of us that wants to engage in the world on a full moon, right? We want to be out there and we want to be part of things and we want to have this social awareness. And when it's a new moon, we move into a more meditative state where the moon and sun come together. Our state of consciousness is mingled with our mind and our emotions, and we're not as full and we're not as engaged in the world. And therefore we might feel a little bit sadder or more depressed. But we're also closer to a meditative state. We're more able to get in touch with our true essence of self. If we look at solitude and we look at, the silencing of the mind as something that brings us closer to our true state, it loses the depressive quality and becomes a chance to unite with our own self. And this is what Shivaratri is. It's actually something that happens every month, every moon phase. A month is properly a moon. So the new moon, then we have the full moon 2 weeks in, and then it goes back to a new moon, right? And the waning, the last part of that new moon is Shivaratri. And we have this in phases. In the Vedic system, there's these tithis, these phases, these lunar phases. And the final one before before we actually hit that, that darkest point is called Chaturdashi. Chaturdashi, a little bit of a tongue twister. And it is that phase that is Shivaratri. Well, it's really the 13th night moving into the 14th day. That is Shivaratri every month. Every single month we have this. It's our opportunity to go within. It's our opportunity to merge consciousness in our mind. But then in this particular month, which depending on if you're in the northern region or the southern region of India, it's either the month of Magha or the month of Falguna. It is the Maha Shivaratri. It's the great night of Shiva. And it's said that the earth is in such a way where the northern hemisphere, which is where India is and which is where I am, is pointed in such a way where our potential, our spiritual capacity to reach that consciousness is at its absolute highest point. So, and we can look at this in terms of being sort of the dead end of winter into spring, right? We're almost into spring, and the closing of the winter chapter is kind of like the closing of the waning moon every month. It's when we're about to start fresh. It's where we're about to start new. And I have never really particularly lived in a very snowy place, but I know it often snows this time of year in those places. And we here in Hawaii are having epic rainstorms at the moment. But it's sort of like the last dark before the dawn. And so in the mythology, we see that this is that union of Shiva and Parvati, right? And they both had to wait epics for this to come. Parvati had to go through all these austerities that were unbecoming to who she was naturally as a princess. She's the daughter of Himavat, the Himalayan mountains. And she could have had anyone, right? She could have had any partner. She could have chosen a prince. She could have chosen a king. She could have chosen, Vishnu, somebody who was elegant and poised and of society. But she chose this sort of aesthetic, this wandering, sadhu who doesn't really have much use for material possessions or the norms of society, the rules of society, who hangs out in cremation grounds and wears dreadlocks and smokes ganja and puts ashes all over himself. This kind of person who rejects, or deity who rejects the material world. And she is everything that is the material world. She's beauty, she's passion, she's riches, she's jewels. She loves that stuff. She loves baths, she loves her ornaments, she loves sensuality, all of that. And she's able to awaken him out of his meditation. And he's able to bring her to a state of meditation by doing all these yogic austerities and practices. And so together they unite. And this is the story for, say, a householder, for those of us who are engaged in the world. From the perspective of an ascetic, somebody who's given up all their worldly possessions and is also just seeking the Shiva consciousness all the time, not trying to also engage in the world, this is a celebration of the time that Shiva became one with the mountain. He meditated and meditated and meditated for so many epochs, and at some point reached absolute stillness, absolute capacity to be so still that he was unrecognizable from Mount Kailash itself. So this is what this holiday is about. And so for you, if you are not in any way related to anything in the Vedic world, it doesn't matter. It's still an opportunity for you to access that information, to access that portal, and to go into a state of meditation and really allow yourself to align with yourself. And this is really important now more than ever, because we are, first of all, moving into this new moon in Aquarius, and it's the very end of Aquarius. So all of our new moons have been at the very end of every sign recently. And certainly for people who sort of dabble in both Western astrology and Vedic astrology, it's very confusing because they're like, it's Pisces season, what's going on? Well, actually the way that the actual alignments are, where the moon actually is, if you take a telescope or an app to the sky, you'll see that it's at the very end of Aquarius for this new moon, moving into the last degree. And so we are still in that collective consciousness. We're still in that state of the world community, the world that we are all a part of, and we all have a function in, and what we can envision for that world, and how can we make that world work for all of us. And not only are just the sun and the moon there, but we also have Venus and Mercury there. And Venus has been there for a while, so it's very close degrees to our sun and our moon. Mercury is earlier on in it, and actually I'll go ahead and use this opportunity to share the chart so you can see it. So right here you can see we have our sun and moon here almost at 29 degrees. And the last degree, it's, goes to 30 degrees. So it's the last degree of the sign. And then Venus here at 25, 40. So pretty close. Mercury's just moved in. And this is offering us an opportunity to use this meditative state, to use this quality of Shivaratri to still work for the good of all. And it's a capacity within us to harmonize, compromise, use our desire to connect with others, our desire to be with others as a motivating force to do good things in the world that help create a world where we can all be in more harmony and have more happiness. And then also with Mercury here, it not only gives us positive communication skills, because both Venus and Mercury are in good dignity, good intelligence here in Aquarius. They're friendly with Saturn, the ruler, and there's a lot of potential here for, especially with Mercury, for envisioning those big ideas that can help the world, that can change things, that can save the way things are, and maybe even being able to communicate them to people. So in our big thing that we want to do for the world, we always have to start with ourselves, right? We can't just walk around creating change in the world and not do anything with ourselves. We see what that does. We see the big players in this world who've done just that, where they're all about the world stage and what they can do for the world, but they've never even aligned themselves with themselves to begin with. So there's no basis of which this is coming. It's coming from all these egoic states, and they're not able to really connect to the truth of what it is they might be trying to do. You know, I like to believe that all of us on some fundamental level are good people who want good things, but we just have so much clouding our vision. So this is an opportunity to really lose all the fog, you know, lose all the cloud, lose all those attachments, all those confirmation biases, all those things that we feel like we need so bad, and really dial into the truth. Now, and then also have that part of us that's social and wants to meet even just one other human on that level, and maybe have that expand to all humans or the world stage, or at least our community and our society that we're living within. So there's a lot of potential here. The other thing about this is that it's in the star of Purva Bhadrapada, which is it's the opening door of enlightenment. It's where we go from Aquarius, the mind realm of seeing things for the future and imagining what technology, what systems, what ways we could advance ourselves, and moves it into Pisces, the realm of the spirit, where we really get it. It's like, aha, I am not just this body. I'm not even just this mind. I am something so much deeper. I'm that seer behind these eyes. And you begin to awaken into your spiritual self. Well, from that early stage, you see the light, you see what's coming. It's that lightning flash of insight, like, haha, there's more. And then you can move through that door and actually do the work to clear pathways that need to be cleared, to open your eyes deeper and see what really needs to be seen, and to reach on to that sweet nectar. So you can move into the final part of Pisces, where we walk each other home. So this is the beginning of our spiritual awakening, right? That's what this signifies for us. And pretty soon these planets will all be here in Pisces. And Venus, specifically when it moves into Pisces, is exalted there. And it's exalted there because we take our notions of romantic love and our sense of that connection that we get from the give and take and the compromise and all of those things, and we elevate it to a state where we're really loving each other through God, where our love for one another is through our love for God, just as the union of Shiva and Parvati is. It's beyond this sort of, I think you're attractive and I want to, you know, make dinner with you every night and kind of have this mutual compromise where our needs are met. And it moves to a plane where we no longer even need that immediate return on our investment, and we're able to expand our happiness so that it just radiates in all directions. And we know it will come back to us, because at that point, love is everywhere, right? We're literally seeing love everywhere. So this is moving us into that spiritual moment, that spiritual place. And that's going to be, that's where we're headed. And we still have Jupiter and Saturn here in good old Capricorn, where we did have all those planets. If you just think about just a simple month ago on February 11th, we had all these planets here in Capricorn. And now we just have the two mainstays that have been there for a while. Saturn moved in 2020, January, and Jupiter moved in November of 2020. So we've had this push and pull, with Jupiter being in a state of debilitation and Saturn being in his own sign for a while now. And it's created a lot of our reality that we're living in, because these are the outer planets and they transit for so long. They're really anchoring down this Capricorn energy. What Saturn's bringing us to is really conducive to the Shivaratri, this idea of Shivaratri, where we're really able to tap into our detachment and our capacity to meditate, our capacity to sit alone in stillness and actually go there, right? And sit with all the dark stuff and sit with everything that's uncomfortable, and realize that time is both very limited, but even beyond that is unlimited if we can move out of this concept of being like a body bag, being the suit that we're wearing of flesh and bones, and we can move into our spiritual truth. And this is greatly, of course, helping Jupiter, because Jupiter is in a state of debilitation here, where our beliefs and stuff you can see can come from fear. And you see it across the board. It's one of the things that's very interesting to me. A lot of astrologers will take a stance on things. And of course, I have my own beliefs and opinions about things that are going on in the world. But ultimately, these alignments affect everyone. They affect your friends who are, on this side, your friends who are on that side, your parents and you, and everything in between. We have a basis of, like, it's a fear-based set of beliefs driving all the different beliefs. It's not just the ones you don't agree with. And I know that is hard for people to hear and understand and take in, because it's always the other, right? We always want to make it the other people are so fearful. I can't believe how fearful those other people are. And you can see it smattered across social media, how much othering we're doing. But the true essence of all of these things, especially the energy of Saturn, and that also of Mars, is to take it on ourselves, to do the work ourselves. What are we pointing fingers at when we're not even able to take access of our own self? It's very much like, millionaires and billionaires taking on world problems when they're not aligned to begin with what the real problems are. They're making solutions that help them as opposed to solutions that help us. And this is why each of us need to do our own work, and each of us need to be accountable for not only ourselves, but our community and those around us. And we can't just kind of sit back and allow things to unfold without doing our own work first, our interpersonal work with our partners or with our friends or with our, coworkers or whoever we're around. And then 3, bringing that up to the greater society, the greater world. This is a lot of what the lessons are that we're learning in this time. And, when we get to the Pisces land, it can be a lot of escapism. It can be a lot of avoidance. It can be a lot of just like, oh, I know this doesn't really make sense, but it is, I feel it and it's true. And if your feelings and your insights, are to be true and are to really be potent spiritual portals, they need to come from a place where you've cleared your slate to begin with. If you've got all this stuff on your windshield, you're not seeing clear. So whatever visions or things you're having are contorted and therefore lead you further into delusion rather than into awakening, which is what we want. And what we see now is a ton of delusion, right? That's the spiritual cloud has been shrouded, and it's really being advanced by this technological age we're in, because people can just wake up and look at their phone and just immediately move into all these other realities that are being given to them and have trouble reminding themselves to be with themselves. So, also a wonderful thing to do in this community time is to really look at your local community, like the actual humans around you and the actual world you're living in, as opposed to the internet world, because we are all in this together. And what I do here affects you over there, 100%. But the more that our engagement comes through these sort of distanced sources and shared memes and articles and all this sort of outside stuff, and the less it comes from literally just talking to another human and having that human-to-human relatability, the more easy it is to disregard and to write people off and to lump people into categories and to make everything this way or that way, and to look at it through these other eyes, as opposed to seeing that the other person is you. The other person is you with a different set of challenges, a different reality they're living in, a different type of home situation, different type of job situation, different type of financial situation, different type of partnership situation or familial situation. We're in different realities, but we're each trying to do the best we can here. And as long as we don't believe that, as long as we're vested in the other, that concept that this other person is this horrible person, or this other person is this stupid person, or this other person is this way or that way, and I know because there's so many of them, they're all fitting in this box for me, then I'm never going to be able to do the real work. There's no way to do the real work when you see things that way. There's literally no way. There just isn't. So if we care to do the work, which we do, we need to, we're here, we've reached that point, then this is where we're at. The other thing that's really interesting in this, in this period of time is that we're in this Kalasarpa yoga again, right? The moon is back in between the two nodes. We have Rahu here, Ketu here, the nodes move backwards, all the planets are in between them. and Mars is still only 11 degrees, so it hasn't passed Rahu. The moon comes out half the month. So we can feel it. Like when it breaks free, you can feel that mark of like, I just came out of this like weird delusional time snake, which is what Kala Sarpa means. It's the Sarpa is the snake or the serpent, and Kala is time. And it's giving us that confusion and delusion that the nodes bring us. These are the eclipse points, right? So when the moon and sun are joined them, we have an actual eclipse of our mind and our power, when it's a full or new moon. But the Kalasarpa is when we're twisted in it. And the delusion becomes very much a part of reality because it's for an extended period of time. It's for half the month that the moon will be in there. And that feeling or that experience that we have puts us deeper into the trance of seeing things in this sort of otherworldly quality where, yes, we're getting messages, we're getting signs. So with a Purva Bhadrapada new moon, we're getting the lightning flash of insight, and we're in this Kalasarpa yoga. So there's all these different signs. And depending on what axis this is for you, right? If this is, for me, it's my first 7th axis. So this has to do with other people and stuff like that. For, if it's your 4th, 10th axis, it has to do with your career and your home. It has to do with wherever these nodes are. And if you don't yet know, and you're not on my email list, I do have a report that sends out right away when you sign up for it that will tell you what that axis is for you, what's being highlighted in this cycle, because it's been there since September of 2020. And it'll also tell you where Jupiter and Saturn are in your chart, because I have another one that goes out that's about Capricorn. So if you haven't done that yet, it's at www.radhahomeyoga.com. So you can sign up for that and get that report for yourself and kind of understand what this Kalasarpa yoga is for you and what area of life is so heightened in this time for you. And really the thing that we tend to not look at is the K2 end, the southern node. So that's where we're trying to kind of avoid and not look. And we're putting all our emphasis on the north node where Rahu is, because that's where we want to be engaged in the world. This is the head. This is the part that's the head and the mouth where we eat our way through everything, trying and trying and trying to find the answers. And this is where we're like, I've already been there. I've already done that. It's the tail. It's the body. That's what's digested, but not taking in anything else. And so in both cases, there's a lot of illusion and delusion available. And having this period where all the planets are in between them means all of our energy is wrapped into that. All of the different planetary energies that pull on us, they're called grahas in the Vedic system. They pull on us, they grab us with their gravitational pull. And that is entwined in this, totally delusion-based, but also potentially very awakening-based time snake. And so if it's going to be an awakening, it's just the same advice I would give on an eclipse. You need to be clear, and you cannot be clear if you wake up every day and go out in the world and start talking to people and start looking at your phone, start looking at your computer, start watching the news. That is not a way to be clear. That is a way to know everything else that's being given to you and to not know yourself at all. If you have any prayer or hope of having some kind of enlightening experience, you need to know who you are. You need to know yourself. And the only way to do that is to go into a state of meditation. Now, some people can't meditate, they can't sit still. And I think it's something you need to move towards. So that's why you can do yoga asana, you can go surfing, there's many different things that can bring you into that state. Anything that you're really good at and that you really love doing, where you can let go when you get in there, can be an opportunity to access that part of you. But when you're sitting still and quiet, you don't also have to worry about, the wave coming, all these other things happening at that time. You're not multitasking. You're just sitting with it, which is very powerful. So there's a lot aiding us in this moment, and then a lot that could distract us, right? It's awesome that we have this opportunity for harmony and all those things, but it also puts in the quality of really wanting pleasure, happiness, desire, and all of that. And being driven by that motivation, being driven by the connective quality. The other thing is that because Jupiter is in this state in Capricorn, where we're more constricted, we're more focused on money and fear and what could go wrong and all the potential ways of, survival needs to be and all of this stuff, that Jupiter, and yes, it is joined the Saturn, but it on its own is giving a one-way drishti, a one-way gaze to this Mars in Taurus. And Mars in Taurus is already tends towards action that is less disciplined and less courageous and more pleasure-based, or how, more based on gathering material possessions, feeling comfortable, eating, sleeping, having sex. These kind of things are more where our actions are when Mars is in Taurus. And as it moves closer to the North Node, we're going to sort of expand our ideas of that, or our concept of that. Whatever it rules for you will come into major play. It'll expand that thing for you, but it's also Mars. Mars has an angry quality. And in Taurus, we see the anger comes on a dime, right? There's this la, 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 everything's going well. I'm doing fine. I'm being a little lazy. I'm doing this. I'm eating. Oh my gosh, now I'm angry. And it comes from something either externally disrupting the peace, or in this case, Jupiter coming from Capricorn, and the sense of time and this awareness of this time and what needs to happen, and the pressure that we feel from Saturn being joined Jupiter and from being in this sign at all. And that pressure to be like, oh, now you have to act. And it's like, everybody else has been keeping me from my discipline, but actually it's just been ourselves. So that can get us into a state of quick anger, fueled by fearful beliefs, fueled by beliefs that are constricted by time, ultimately on the biggest level. And time, equals death. If you think about time ending, that's how it goes. That's how it ends for each of us individually. That can wake up the Mars in Taurus and create a sense of discord and therefore anger. You see that angry bull come out. But it also can be inspiring. It can cause your, even though it's a Jupiter that's not in great dignity, even though it's a Mars that's not in great dignity, it can still inspire us to act in a direction. And specifically the direction of Taurus, while it can be, it can border on lazy, it can also really tap us into our values, and specifically our values around food, sustainability, living a good life, remembering that life is not just about work and what we have to do and all the problems in the world, that a lot of the solutions that we're coming up with here in the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, new moon have to involve play. In previous societies, and someone just posted something about this in, I'm trying to think of what, it might have been Hawaii, but the ancient cultures all in play was not this like unnecessary thing that we did just to feel good occasionally to reward our long work days. That's not actually a right way to live. We shouldn't be working these 13-hour days and still not making ends meet and worried about ourselves and our ability to pay our bills and all these things. Play also shouldn't be something that is just, buying more stuff and getting more junk food or eating, pizza and ice cream and movie nights and all this stuff like that. Play is really intertwined into work. And there's an amazing book that, I really recommend to anybody who's having a child or has kids. The continuum concept is written back in the 60s. And this lady was visiting with a tribe in, I think, Brazil or somewhere in South America. And it was the most preserved tribe. Like they still had their traditional ways of doing everything, at that time. And one of the things she talks about in the book is this concept of work and play, and how they don't have a word. They don't have a differential. They don't have a word for it, because everybody wants to work. Everybody wants to do what they need to do in order to contribute to society. Nobody really wants to be doing nothing. If you're not working a job, maybe you're taking care of an infant, or you're pregnant or having a baby, or maybe you're taking care of young children. Maybe you're old and you've already done your work, and your work now at this point is just to be wise and to pass that wisdom on to others. Maybe you're handicapped, whatever the different, situations are that would involve not wanting to contribute the same way everyone else is. You're still a contribution. Even children and babies, their contribution is overlooked. They're the ones who remind us to play. They're the ones who remind us to be creative, to be in ourselves, and to make things from that creative place, rather than this doldrum, we're going to die if we don't do it place. And as long as we stay stuck in that survival mindset, we won't be able to expand to all the potential possibilities. Our potentials will always look so limited to us. So one of the biggest opportunities we have in this new moon is that mixture of play with discipline, with the capacity to check in with ourselves and see what really is, and that capacity to reach out to others and not think we know everything ourselves. If you go traveling to a new place and you just want to start instilling all your, all your views of what can make the place better, that's that's one thing. But if you are able to converse and talk with people and find out what they think the problems are and what they have going on in their life, rather than assuming everything from your own worldview is right, because each of us are sitting in a different room right now. Some people are sitting in a room that they were sitting in long before any pandemic ever happened. And they really enjoyed being at home a lot anyway. And they spent a lot of time on the computer anyway, and maybe didn't have that full of social lives anyway. And this really isn't that big of a deal for them. Other people are trying to juggle things they've never had to juggle in their own home before. Other people have had to work during this whole thing. And the idea that, that they can't go out and engage with people when they go out every day and work these, often very low paid jobs for hours on end is a little bit of a disconnect in the brain. So there's people who are thriving right now. There's people who are barely surviving right now. There are people who are in all different states of mind. And each one of us come with not only our back history, but our current situation as well. And if we don't talk to each other and we don't communicate about those things, then we can't know. Then we're just continuing to oppress others and project our own feelings, thoughts, and ideas on them based on our worldview and our world reality, which is pretty shallow if you think about it, and also really ineffective if we want to create real change in the world. So the more we can move out of listening to information from outside sources, and the more we can genuinely communicate with other people and play and talk and enjoy that connectivity, the more we're going to open to the realm of possibilities we did not even realize were available. And again, it starts with really checking in with yourself and really understanding what your own values and beliefs are from a deeper place, not from what's being, given to you from outside sources. So as much as social media can be a great connector for people and give us an opportunity to see people we might not see all the time, it really, in the end, seems to be more alienating than uniting. And we need more uniting, more working together, so that we can solve real problems. And real people need to solve real problems, not people who have nothing to do with the real problems. Or in many ways have actually created the real problems with their own wealth acquisition mindset. So that's something to really ponder. How can you play more? And this is one of the things I love about the Lord Shiva energy with Parvati, is that she does wake him up to play. She does entice him, not just with erotic, feelings of love, but also the idea of enchanting us into playing. And when you're dealing with children, that's the way to get children to do what you want them to do, is to enchant them, to magnetize them with your playfulness, not to kind of tell them what to do. Well, we're all children, and that's the truth for everyone. Everyone walking around pointing fingers, being didactic, all this stuff, it's never going to work. It's never going to get you anywhere. So, and it's also not going to make you a very likable person or somebody that other people want to be around and want to work with. And so then you're even alienating yourself more. So the name of the game right now, drop into yourself, reach out to people immediately around you, and then maybe you can reach some very real solutions for our greater world community. So I hope this was helpful. And again, if you have not yet and you would like to receive, I send these forecasts every couple of weeks, and big reports when we have a transit with one of the outer planets that's really going to affect us. I make those as well. Jupiter will be moving into Aquarius itself in April, and I'll have one of those coming up soon, with Jupiter and Aquarius for all 12 signs. So if you want to get connected, you can go ahead and sign up for my website, my email list on my website, www.radhahomeyoga.com, and I'll put the link down below. Have a beautiful, blessed Maha Shivaratri and new moon. Namaste.